government business, namely the failure to appoint a deputy speaker, as well as the issue where Mr. Hilaire's motion was removed from the order paper at the last minute. Considering this move by the Prime Minister to flout convention again, are you any closer to making that decision to seek judicial review, or what's your opinion on that?
Yes, we are still speaking to our lawyers. As you know, we are in uncharted territory, and the lawyers are saying that. It's the first time that has happened. It's the first time in the history of St. Lucia that the House sits without a deputy speaker. If you look at from the beginning of the House of Assembly, from 1979, there's always been a deputy speaker. This government is flaunting all traditions. You understand? So even the lawyers are looking at it, because this government has shown that it has utter contempt and arrogance towards the Parliament and towards the people of St. Lucia.
Would you characterize the situation that exists currently in Parliament as a constitutional crisis?
I would not say it's a crisis. What I would say, it's a flaunting of processes and procedures. You see, I want to say a little bit about the Constitution. The Constitution speaks to men of goodwill. It doesn't believe that men would deliberately use it for ill will. And that is what the government is doing. The government is showing no goodwill. It's showing no goodwill. The Constitution says that it ought to be the executive, the judiciary, and the Parliament. The government, by appointing everyone a minister, has effectively made everybody the executive. You understand? So the Constitution in itself is a document that speaks to goodwill and that speaks to men of goodwill.
There can be a lot of parallels being drawn between the situation as it currently obtains in St. Lucia and the situation as it currently obtains in Congress in the United States of America. We saw, last year, Republicans, congressmen and senators refused to appoint a Supreme Court nominee, completely flouting their tradition and convention that a vacancy is filled as soon as possible. In retrospect, seeing that many of you here today were in government when the constitutional reform question came up in Parliament, and many of you gave presentations not supporting the recommendations of the provision. Do you think, in retrospect, that you should have, or you wish now that you would have addressed and passed some sort of constitutional reform when you had the opportunity?
No. What I recall is that the opposition did not agree with certain aspects of the reform in terms of election of members of the House of Assembly, in terms of the dual representatives. That's what we did not agree with. We never disagreed with entire aspects. We agreed with parts. We disagreed with parts of it. But you see, there is nothing wrong in the Parliament as it's presently constituted. There is nothing wrong with it. What is wrong is the vindictiveness and the arrogance of the Prime Minister. That is what is wrong. Nothing wrong in the Parliament. The Parliament speaks to standing orders. There's nothing wrong in the Parliament. As I said to you before, the Parliament assumes a proper posture and goodwill.
Can I challenge you on that statement a little bit, that there's nothing wrong with Parliament? Obviously, if we are witnessing such a breakdown in committee, in procedure, in the actual getting the business of the country done, couldn't an argument be made that there is something wrong because the Constitution as currently written, as you stated, depends on the presence of people of goodwill? So there has not historically been any safeguards, so to speak, against people who are acting in bad faith. And that brings me to my previous question, which is, do you think that some action should have been taken to pass some measure of constitutional reform when you had the opportunity?
Okay, I'll tell you what. The Parliament is run by standing orders. And the Parliament says where the standing orders are quiet, are silent, the Speaker has the final say. So it's clear on that. and you spoke about the U.S. Congress. There's a fundamental difference. The Republicans in the U.S. Congress, their motion and the entire posture was for the government to fail. They made it clear. The Republicans said that they would not support the government because they wanted the government to fail. We haven't said so. We do not want the government to fail. We haven't said so. So there's a fundamental difference. But the point I want to stress to you is that the Constitution as presently written, of course, there is need for change. There is need to make it modern. But in terms of the basic tenets as it relates to the Parliament, all the safeguards are in there. They are in there. Of course, the government has the majority. You expect them to have the final say, of course. But what could you write in a constitution that would cause the prime minister to behave in that manner? Who would ever believe that the prime minister would adjourn a parliament for 40 days? I mean, the framework of the constitution will not dream of that. I mean, you think they would ever dream of that? That he would adjourn the parliament for 40 days?
Mr. Pierre, do you think, maybe along the same lines, do you think that maybe the Constitution or the House Standing Orders should be more specific as to how the debate is structured? Because if I understand, I think there were eight on the government side to present, and there were 3 or 4 on the opposition side. So naturally, one would think that the turn would go two on the government, then 1 opposition, which is the reason I'm sure you guys walked out of the House. So should our standing orders be more specific in that regard?
Well, yes. I guess in hindsight you can say that. But in hindsight you can say that. But I'll tell you something. Why won't the Prime Minister allow his 4 most senior ministers speak? The public wants to know. The public, we are the opposition. The Prime Minister, the government runs the country. Why won't the Prime Minister allow his 4 most senior ministers, free-term parliamentarians, tell the people what they're doing? It's not, you see, the budget doesn't belong to us, The budget belongs to the government. The government is the one that calls the tune. The Prime Minister made it clear in his rebuttal. He's making it clear that he's in charge. You understand? If he is in charge, then the people who are in charge are the ones who have to report. We are the opposition. The Prime Minister doesn't consult us on anything. I wrote the Prime Minister, and he hasn't answered me.
When did you write it?
On the 29th of May. He hasn't even had the courtesy of a response. That is basic manners. Or acknowledgement. He hasn't said, listen, I received your letter. That's the arrogance of the Prime Minister after just 1 year. And he believes that he can bully us into silence, the same way he did with the National Trust. He believes he can bully you into silence, and you would not be surprised if the Prime Minister begins to target members of the opposition for systematic victimization. We should not be surprised. You will not be surprised if some actions of the Prime Minister that will specifically target the members of the opposition for particular actions. Do not be surprised, because that is in his whole demeanor, in his whole attitude. So we are preparing for it. You understand? The first attack he continues was on the Honorable Ernest Hilaire. You understand? So you must not be surprised. You will not be surprised that this government may target members of the opposition in the most vindictive and vicious fashion. But we are prepared for it.
So I would assume that today the bill will have readings and then the committee stage and blah blah blah, and then it's now handed to the upper house to debate. Right?
No, it's a money bill. But I will tell you, our senators will not be attending.
They will not be attending.
No. Our senators will not be attending. Our senators will not be attending Thursday sitting of the Senate.
Sir, can you tell us, or can you sketch out your strategy for the Labour Party?
We are going, as we continue to continue the building of our party, but we are going to take our message to the streets. On Thursday night, we go to the market steps. We are taking our message to the streets. We're going to be holding a number of town hall meetings, a number of meetings throughout the island. because we agreed and we made it clear. And you should go on the record and see. We said that we respect the fact that the government had won the election and the government has a right to govern. But the government is not respecting itself. So we're going to take it to the streets. Very soon, we're going to be dealing with more protests because we will not allow the government, we will not allow the Prime Minister to run roughshod over the people of the country or roughshod over the opposition, as he clearly shows that he wants to do. We will not allow it. Our history doesn't allow it. George Charles would turn in his grave if he knows that we allowed that to happen.
Will you concentrate your efforts with protest action just in the Castries area, or are you going around the country?
Lots of meetings. We've been in Ancillary. We're very interested in Ancillary. We've been in Canaries. We had a very good tunnel meeting in Canaries. We're going to Soufrière. We're very interested in the West Coast, and particularly the South. Because as the member for Larbi said, the DSH is the singular most important issue in the country, and the member for Larbi was clear in his discourse that the government has given one man 900 acres of land, some of it for $1, for 99 years. And the Prime Minister doesn't want any debate because he believes. You see, when the Prime Minister can say in public that you will change the name Vieux-Fort, a name that is so rich in culture, so rich in patrimony, so rich in history, you will change it to the Pearl of the Caribbean. It shows the scorn and the contempt that the Prime Minister has for the people of St. Lucia. You want, Vieux-Fort, the history of Vieux-Fort, you turn into the Pearl of the Caribbean because you want to make people come to race horses? You can see the contempt. And to hide that contempt, he attacks the Labour Party. Everything in this country, they attack the Labour Party. You'll believe that they are still in opposition. They attack the Labour Party. Every word of his rebuttal, not why he gave Ojo Labs $1,000 per person, and there are small businesses in the country who have issues and problems. He will not explain that. He will not explain why they refuse to give the children of the country computers so that they can join in the technological age. He will not explain why the price of fuel will be up by $1.50, which will have a domino effect on the country. He will not explain that, but he will attack the Labour Party. That is their only option. The only thing is to attack the Labour Party. That's all they do. They say nothing else. They don't explain their actions. There is a rumor that teachers are going to lose their jobs. He will not explain that. He will not explain the nice workers who he callously sent home under the guise that they have no contract. He will not explain that. He will never explain these things. What he will do is attack the Labour Party and single out members of the Labour Party for victimization and vindictiveness, and people who he presumes support the Labour Party.
During the conclusion of his speech, Mr. Baptist indicated that, well, he gave a strong statement saying that the last is the beginning of things to come.
You were rehearsing.
Right, it was just a rehearsal. Now, the PM has clearly indicated that he's remaining defiant. He has indicated that protests, meetings, etc., they don't really bother him like water off a duck's back. And yet you're saying that you guys are planning more protests and more meetings and stuff. Going according to what Mr. Baptiste said, is that all you guys have planned, or we will
always obey the law. We'll always obey the law. The Labour Party will never transgress the law. We will never be in conflict with the police. What we are saying, the Prime Minister doesn't understand history. The Prime Minister must understand leaders like Gaddafi, leaders like Mubarak, leaders like the Shah of Iran, leaders like Saddam Hussein. They spoke even in louder terms. They were defiant. They said nothing will shift them. They had armies. Look at where they are today. Leaders like Eric Geary, so the Prime Minister must understand history. Must understand that history has a way of dealing with these people who believe they are dictators or who believe that they are untouchable and the power is in their hands. Tell the Prime Minister, history. He should read his history if he can.
But then history has also given birth to some figures, including Mandela, who did not stick to the rules, and yet still, well, we all know the rest of that story. In a time like this, where the country is actually pleading for results, do you think that sticking to the rules will actually achieve any sort of results?
I'll tell you what. The strategy of the party now is to bring its message to the streets because they are the present problems. The Prime Minister said that St. Lucia must copy Jamaica. There have been 600 murders in Jamaica. What is the Prime Minister? And that's what the Prime Minister said, He said Jamaica is a model. There are 600 murders in Jamaica. And his friend, why is he was saying that? The Prime Minister of Jamaica was sitting next to him. So is the Prime Minister saying a model? But St. Lucia is not very far. We've had 27 murders in 6 months. So we may even be higher than Jamaica. But that is the thinking of the Prime Minister. That's what he thinks. We will not stoop to the level to that level. We will continue to bring the issues to the people of St. Lucia. We will continue to show the people of St. Lucia what is wrong, but we love St. Lucia. We will never partake in any action that will bring the country into the worst state than the Prime Minister himself, by his own actions, is taking the country. We will not.
I have two questions for you, sir. The first one is, is the Prime Minister, Dr. Kenny Anthony, at this press conference and previous press conferences a coincidence or a strategic move by the Labour Party?
Dr. Kenny Anthony is a fully fledged member of the party. He joins us. He's with us at all sessions. We have no issues with Dr. Anthony. We appreciate the role that Dr. Anthony has played as Prime Minister of the country. We believe that Dr. Anthony was a much better Prime Minister than what exists now. So we have absolutely no problems with Dr. Anthony. Dr. Anthony is appreciated, well respected in our party.
So his absence at this press conference and previous press conferences is coincidental?
Dr. Anthony has just begun his legal practice. Dr. Anthony he's decided that we can very effectively speak for him.
So it's strategic.
We can speak with Dr. Anthony. We speak the same language.
Okay, second question for you. During Mr. Baptiste's presentation, he actually made the first mention of an alternative policy that I have heard since I've been attending the budget debates. In your town hall meetings and your presentations in this appropriation cycle, there has been a lot of criticism about the policies and actions of the current administration, but Mr. Baptiste today actually provided his first alternative policy proposal, or the first alternative policy proposal that I have heard from the Labour Party should they be returned to office. A lot of people on the ground are criticizing the Labour Party for this stance, in terms of we are hearing a lot of criticism, we're hearing a lot of critique, but we're not hearing alternatives or positive policy proposals that the party will prepare to implement on assuming power the next time. Can we hear more of that in the future?
You want to answer the next question right away when you answer that?
Those were my two.
Okay. I will ask the Honourable Albertus to speak more on that. But you must understand, it's very unfair to say that the Labour Party has not been dealing with alternative policy. You must take it in context. An election has just been a year. The government came to the people with a policy, 5 to stay alive, a manifesto. What the Labour Party is doing is allowing the government to manifest its work. We've said to the government, do not reduce VAT. They refuse. We said to the government, the policy on the license, car licenses is wrong. They refuse. We said to them, continue to with the laptop per child per second. They refuse. So the government was elected. So it's not fair to say that we're allowing the government to, if we say anything, if we say anything, they'll say, as you heard them today, when Honorable Baptiste was making the point about the alternative policy, you heard what he said. Now you know that. That's what they say. Now you know that. You must understand, there is no win-win with this government. The Labour Party's agenda will not be set by the government. Our agenda will be set by discussion with people, discussion with the social partners. As you may know, we have written all the social partners to tell them to have a discussion with them. So our agenda will be set based on these parameters. As I said, we believe in servant leadership. We're going to listen to what the people say. So it's not time. It's not the right time. But I can tell you.
The Minister for Education did say this morning that the $500 bursary will continue this year. Parents will be paused after the carnival. A reaction to this?
No, we're happy. Why do you think we should be unhappy? Why do you think?
They stopped the number. You always made number they stopped. I think there was some concern about the bursary.
Yeah, well, we are happy, and I'm sure it's because of pressure from the opposition that happened. And not in the budget either. So I guess it's a second thought. The second thought. You understand? But we're happy. Is that something? If the government would do a lot of good things, we'd be happy, Why do you think we want? Huh? No. Very correct. Very incorrect. If the government, we will be happy, but the government cannot do everything right. They will not, especially that government. Very difficult.
Before 100 days was up, the SLP had already taken to the streets, calling for a review of policies and so forth. Well, the year, sorry. Before I hear what's up. Is it the party's plan to see another general election happen before this government's term is really up?
I'll tell you what. We are a political party preparing all the time to be in government. But whilst we prepare, we will not allow the government. You see, I'll tell you something. What do you think if you allow the government to do whatever they want because they won an election? Winning an election doesn't give a license to do whatever you want, I mean, there seems to be the belief that because you win, you can do whatever you want. That's not true. When we were in government, when we won the election, the United Democratic Party never gave us a chance. They said it wouldn't last. You mustn't forget that, You seem to be forgetting these things. The United Democratic Party led a march for gas prices. When everybody knew that gas prices were a worldwide phenomenon, they led a march for it. So when the government is crying foul, they're just crying foul because the policies are failing and will continue to fail because the policies were ill-conceived. That was a big bluff on the people of St. Lucia. When you reduce VAT and you lose $52 million in revenue, but in the flip, you increase gas prices by 60%, $1.50 on every gallon of gas. You expect the Labour Party to just sit idly by and say you won the election so you can do that? We haven't opposed that. We haven't opposed the government. We'll never oppose the $500 voucher. It was our policy, which we're very happy that they are continuing. But we will oppose the nice workers. We will oppose a policy of making people cry. Of course we will oppose. We will continue to oppose what is necessary to oppose, and that is our right, and that's what the people of St. Lucia put us to do. And we represent them to the best of our ability.
Whilst allowing the government to, so to speak, dig their own pit, to gamble the support from your supporters, really, are you willing to gamble that with your seemingly passive stance, like say walking out of Parliament and, as I said earlier, just holding market step speeches and
Yes,
stuff like that?
we live in a democracy, and democracy allows you certain tools with which to protest. The tools democracy allows are public meetings, protest action, marches, and demonstrations. These are the tools we're going to use now.
You were saying something? You had to respond to that question.
What question exactly?
I thought, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact,
Yes.
yeah.
Was last Monday, I think, and then he asked that two particular people not be there, namely Calix George Jr. and Mr. Tulsi, to which they postponed to Wednesday, and we're hearing that he did not show up for this meeting. But then, of course, Calix George served as the Prime Minister's attaché while you were in government, and I'm sure the national trust issues came up where he would have had to probably intervene. What can you speak to us about him being a national trust member and being government at the time? Because it seems to be that there's a bias because of what's going on now. There's a bias towards the Labour Party side.
No, Julian Hunt. Again, your history. Julian Hunt was showing national trust, and he was the leader of the opposition under John Compton. So that's a fact. You know. I did something. The UDP pretend to follow John Compton, in spite of the fact that what happened to John Compton when they were in government. That is history. You understand? John Compton's demise is history, and they pretend that they love John Compton so much, right? But we were the ones, the Labour Party, we were the ones who put a statue for John Compton in the park, and then the way John Compton was dealt with is history that I've written at some point. But the National Trust doesn't belong to Calix George, you know. What has happened to this government is they've personalized everything because their objective is to make you cry. The National Trust is larger than Calix George or Tulsi or Chase or any of us. The National Trust is an organization that John Compton is the one who gave the National Trust its first subvention. And even when Julian Hunt was vehemently opposed to John Compton, he continued to fund the National Trust. But you see, you must look into the mind of the Prime Minister and see what's there. And that's what's important. I don't think people are taken that as serious as they should take it. You have to look into the mind of a Prime Minister who lost the first election, won in a short seat, and became Prime Minister. But in his mind, his whole demeanor is because the National Trust has spoken against him. And that's what's important. He has defunded the National Trust. And that's the point, you know. It's not a matter of Calix George or Tulsi or individuals. It's a matter of what's in the guy's mind. And that is the issue. And I'm saying to you, you should be very prepared to hear that individuals, we're going to be targeted.
The alternative policy issue.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to align myself with the statement made by the leader of the opposition, that the SLP will pursue its return to government via patient endeavor, and we will maneuver within the parameters of democracy and within the parameters of the law. We are going to sustain the pressure on the government because you have a lot of people, thousands of St. Lucians, who look up to us for honest purpose. And we are not going to abandon our responsibility as an opposition because of anything else. We are patriotic St. Lucians, and obviously people are hurting in this country, especially those who are victimized and cannot send their kids to school. We cannot sit in the parliament and decide we are not going to articulate the issues. However, we are not going to engage in no coup d'etat. This is something that is not part of our DNA. So therefore, we are going to do what is necessary. We have read the mood of the people correctly. We had the first march, and I can say to you, by the second march, the ground is swelling. And we promised the people of this country at the first thunderclap of the nation's discontent, we would be there. And we were there to lead the march, to bring to the attention of the government of St. Lucia that we are dissatisfied with the manner in which they are proceeding with governing this country. The disrespect for social partners. They dismiss them as sectoral irritants. They use the machinery of government as a weapon against them. You know, no $700,000 for you because you're bad talking me. Mr. Tulsi was attacked. So that type of behavior is really not in consonance with the type of structure that we would like to see in St. Lucia. But to the alternative policy, I remember when we were in government, nobody really asked the United Workers' Party anything about policy. Whether we're in government or in opposition, they asked us about policy. And the policy issue is relevant today when we went to the parliament and the people who are responsible for articulating policy refused to speak in the debate. I mean, we were very lenient. They have 11, we have 6. The agreement was when 2 of their members speak, 1 of ours would speak. Because it was 4-4, we even compromised and say, okay, we will go 1-1. And they just refuse to tell the people of this country what is in store for agriculture, what is in store, you know, for the Ministry of Social Justice, for the poor people of this country, the safety net, you know. So as if we have a new set of people who have dominion over life and death, and they decide what happens in the country. But let me say in terms of policy, the Labour Party is engaging the general public. We are building on the foundation laid by our former leader. We are now engaging the public directly in writing the People's Manifesto. That's where the alternative policies will come from. We are going to continue to engage them. We are meeting people. We are meeting groups. Every St. Lucia that is willing to speak to us, we are going to speak to them to craft proper policy that resemble the times that we're in. And no doubt, in the aftermath of the next elections, when the Labour Party returns to office, we shall introduce the people's budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for